Hello, everyone out there in the audience land. Good morning or good afternoon. Really appreciate y'all joining us today for the second session of Screens Unscripted. For those of you who are new, this is a series of fireside chats, which is an opportunity to explore innovations and trends in digital signage and display technology with industry subject matter experts. For those of you I don't know, my name is Jonathan Braun. I'm a principal here at Braun Consulting. I'm a director of the Digital Signage Experts Group, and I'm a member of the board of directors of the Digital Signage Federation. Before I introduce our special guest, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Sony, for helping make this series possible. They've been very kind to help us put together and promote the Screens Unscripted program, and they're helping us line up some outstanding speakers to come in and chat with me and share their insights. And today we do have a very special guest. But just real quickly, before I ask him to introduce himself, because I know he's dying to, I want to do a quick bit of housekeeping for you. Everyone's going to be on mute. You probably already caught that. So please use the chat or Q&A boxes. It's on the right-hand side of your screen, little GoToWebinar tool panel. If you've moved that, you're on your own. I can't really help you, but we'll help facilitate those questions to myself and our guest. We will be recording this for everyone, so you will get a notification for that. Stay tuned for a link via email from GoToWebinar, and Sony is going to be posting it on their YouTube channel as well for everybody. So if any of your teammates couldn't make it, you'll be able to share. This is the second in a series of discussions with industry luminaries. So please stay tuned for future episodes. And if you do have a topic suggestion, feel free to share them with me. I would love that kind of feedback. We're always looking to fine tune and make sure we're covering the subjects that are important to you. All right, so I've been looking forward to this. We have a very special guest today from 22 Miles, Tomer Mann. I'm looking forward to our conversation, and we're going to be discussing things like wayfinding and omnichannel experiences, but especially AI. That's one that we're going to have some fun with, I'm hoping. So Tomer, I'd like to first of all thank you for joining us and give you a chance to introduce yourself to the audience.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to connect with you. Yeah, no, for everyone that is not familiar with me or 22 Miles, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of 22 Miles. I like to say I'm just the face and the mouth, I guess. I'm backed by really our amazing content management developers for our platform that is able to be kind of this comprehensive omni-channel experience that's allowed me to kind of have a lot of fun in the industry. I've been doing this since, we were just talking about this, since 2008. I've been with 22 Miles since 2013, so I guess I'm very old in the industry, and have seen a few things evolve over the years. And I think that there's now the AI is definitely something I've never seen, and how fast it's growing. It's very exciting. So love to engage on that and kind of open that up into a great conversation.
Absolutely. And thank you for a little bit on 22 Miles, because I was going to ask you to mention what your organization does, since not everybody may be familiar, but I know that a lot of people are used to 22 Miles from like generic digital signage, but most especially wayfinding. But I know you're doing a lot more than that now. And maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how the organization has grown past where at least I got introduced originally to you all, was just basic wayfinding and entry-level kind of CMS functionality.
Yeah. The founder is the head engineer, so he developed the Wayfinding as the very first platform application. When I joined, I brought it into more of a digital signage experience solution, and then during COVID, we started adding more of the space utilization, space booking, the mobile components, the employee engagement, and we kind of evolved it into this workplace communication solution. But we've always done a lot of convention centers, done a lot of just live venues, transportation. So we are kind of very flexible. It's just a blank canvas of an experience, a lot of healthcare, a lot of higher ed. So we really can fit the mold of a lot of these kind of experiences that just need different digital applications. And so it's just a pick and click, drag and drop system that's evolved from a multi-touch wayfinding to a more dynamic, interactive solution or platform to support any of these digital connections in a kind of more holistic approach. And we're kind of excited about how we are going to market with all of these, and also the flexibility that our software brings to the market in terms of what we hear from clients, what we connect with partners, what we develop with manufacturers such as a Sony or others, and kind of being able to kind of leverage the latest and greatest, and really kind of push the envelope of design with that.
Outstanding. I really appreciate that. And then it's really been impressive to watch the growth and the change in the organization. But you used a word, and we got to come back to it because it was in the session description too, omnichannel. So a lot of people are thinking about that as kind of a buzzword. It's something that has been kind of floating around the digital signage industry for several years now, but I think it's becoming more relevant. And the picture you're painting about the evolution of 22 miles kind of leans into that. So when we're bringing up the concept of omnichannel, what does that really mean to you as it applies to the change in communication and how all these systems are kind of, I think kind of merging together, right?
Yeah. No, that's a perfect way of saying it. It's kind of merging together. It's a cross-platform, right? It's the flexibility to integrate and automate from multiple data sources, multiple APIs to create this triggering effect to digital displays, to touchscreens, to video walls, to these immersive or experiential or multi-touch scenarios, right? That are all still a display, right? Whether it's a phone, which is a display this size, to a huge 10,000 square foot LED wall in Las Vegas Convention Center, or a Times Square billboards, right? It's all of these different experiences that are level, kind of level set from a design, because it's just width and height in the end of the day, and then trigger through APIs to create these different channels, right? These different connections, omni-channel, cross-platform. It's all one and the same. So it's the flexibility to be turnkey in the end of the day.
Yeah, because you're working across so many different types of platforms, and just my personal experience has been we've had to kind of adapt where we're used to digital signage, and this came up in our previous fireside chat session on the last episode of Screens Unscripted, where we were talking about the evolution of communication. And we were approaching it from more of a corporate communication standpoint, but it's kind of true everywhere, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That we're now dealing with, we have to have information because we're just wired to want this now, because we've got, as I lose where my phone is, it's a good thing it probably would be going off, but we've got the external world brain in our pocket with all the access to all this different information. And so it's changed how we as humans kind of process things a little bit. And so now we're looking for this great experience in consuming data, but we're wanting it in a way that we control. We're wanting it in a way that we can filter and meter for both timeliness. If you're hearing news minute by minute, that's probably old. You want to be hearing things as it happens, right? And then also, it's not just timeliness, but relevance. And so that's kind of changed how we consume things. And that's not just, you mentioned some of the verticals that you all work in. It's kind of happening everywhere, isn't it? That we're changing how we consume data.
It's all about efficiency and productivity, right? And I think COVID really pushed that forward, right? The hybrid model, right? You needed to be effective and efficient in a hybrid environment, remote, right? And now people are coming back. People need to be productive back in the office while still having the flexibility of doing things remote. And that's also creating this omni-channel that's kind of global, right? And it's also made digital signage more of a necessity versus what I think it was previously, this like novelty. It's right now it's got this kind of commodity effect to it. Even QR codes, where they were dying off, now everyone was forced to use a QR code to scan to get your menu or to scan. So now QR codes are kind of back in play, and everyone's using them, and they make so much sense. And with your phone, now you're using QR codes to scan, and you get all this relevant information, or you log into Apple TV in just a couple of clicks now because you scan the QR code. And now, like, even with Wayfinding, you're scanning a QR code to create your current location environment, or even NFC tags, right? You tap your phone now, and now you've got this new relevant information from just a tap. So all of these things, I think, have come to the forefront because of COVID, and because of how people had to adjust to a digital world to reduce some of that human interaction and still have that communication layer available for them. And that's how digital signage, digital communication, I think, is now become such a norm, and is so relevant in anything people do in any market. And I think culturally also, it's crossing boundaries, right? You can show the same content experience in the US that you can show in Guadalajara or Chennai, right? Or like all of these different culture minds, and just tweak a little bit of the local content, but it's still the same template. It's still the same experience, and it's the same even software. So that's also the connections that are now available, and I think have been leveraged by a lot of different organizations and different higher ed campuses that may have a Dubai, like NYU has a Dubai location, right? And they want to still show the same content. So uh, it's exciting how this is growing fast, and I think
Yeah.
thankfully, weirdly enough, the pandemic helped with that, which is weird, but it's true.
Yeah, I point that out all the time that COVID, for all the negative that it did, that it, for at least for our industry,
Hmm.
it was a growth factor because you saw, hey, if you didn't have a digital menu board for your QSR, you're
Hmm.
behind because now you've got to do digital drive-through, you've got to have displays for curbside because 100% of your business is now going through that. You don't have any dining room business anymore.
Hmm.
Healthcare, you mentioned healthcare as a vertical earlier. That's an important one because we had to be up to the minute and we had
Hmm.
to keep up to date, but it's even impacted, like our last session, we were talking about the modern workplace and how the employee experience has become digital. But that's something I believe you all are working in as well
Yeah.
now. But we're now looking at like office hoteling and hybridization where, I walk in, you mentioned the QR code. I walk in, I scan the QR code on my phone, it checks me in. The digital sign and the app tell me where my desk is that day because it might be a different desk than I used the other day, depending on what the office load is, or if I'm checking into a conference room. It's all kind of coming together because we need to get that information to our staff. So you might
Hmm.
have digital signage now. I mean, look at things like Zoom. I know we're not on that platform. Look at things like Zoom incorporating digital signage into their UCC platform where they want some form of information to be on that Zoom room or Teams room screen when it's not in use to continue communicating
Yeah.
with the staff and connecting with data. Data driven is one of my other favorite buzzwords. The way that you guys are using it is more accurate than some folks do, of course. But it's like I want to take all of this big amount of data because we've been talking about big data for years now as kind of a generic concept, right? So I take all that amount of data and now I can trigger an action based on things like you mentioned, the different cross-cultural communication. Maybe I have different languages I want to run. So that is a lot of information to crunch, which kind of brings me over to the other buzzword you knew I was going to bring up because I threw it into the intro, AI.
Yeah.
AI is, and the audience is all going, oh man, really? They're going to do that? Yeah, we are, guys. Sorry, you signed up for this. You're stuck. You can't run away. Um,
Well, you
every time
can
I
run
bring up
away, but
AI,
we don't, because we won't make it boring, I promise. So,
absolutely. But it's like every time I bring up AI, I get groans from the audience because it's been overused, right? They expect you to bring it up, but it has been growing like crazy lately. And the last couple of years, I think this is something that all of these other trends are kind of culminating, right? Because we need tools to crunch all that data and figure out how to use it. And that's kind of creating some things. I mean, I love that people say this is going to be end of the human race is AI. No, we've all seen Terminator. We're not going to plug the nukes into it. It's not Skynet. But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. So I have to say, so what are your thoughts on kind of the growth of AI, but more importantly, what real role can it play for us? And maybe how you all are leveraging AI would be another good topic.
I think there's so many different layers to how people are leveraging AI. Like I use for my Teams meetings that I do, I use like Read.ai. I love it. It's my virtual assistant.
Yeah,
It basically gets insights, sentiments. It starts giving me deep coaching, like even what my words per minute are, because I can talk really fast, and it even like lets me know I should have slowed down because the average words per minute are this, and you were like there, right? So um, and then if I do follow-up meetings, I get an email from Read.ai that tells me what the action items, what the questions were, and reminds me of what that meeting was because it transcribes everything. And it's just amazing how that AI has like revolutionized my own way of working and even kind of creating these better meetings from it and better visual or even coaching and insights from it. And all of that KPIs, all of that data, all that metrics can then be taken over as well to other pieces. And if I use that level of AI, I can take that and put it into digital displays. And now I can create metrics and KPIs and performance information and like this meta layer that is pretty interesting. And we work in the same way, right? All of that API that we can derive from Office 365, single sign-on, Infor, whatever it may be, whatever kind of data components, and create these data visualizations and performance-driven information that then trigger additional content and automate that content through the AI experience, right? And on the flip side, we've also looked at how we can use AI to assist from an ADA or visually impaired perspective. Now we're adding an extra layer of benefit and for a more worldly approach, where now AI natively supports 50 languages. So from a cultural perspective, natively, you can just talk in any language and ask it a question. Our software is trained to kind of create a walled garden around the AI. So it's only responding within that client's database or that client's project information or their website. So it's not creating what's called hallucinations and going crazy into random answers. So we train it to only respond within that. And now you've got this virtual assistant that's giving you information if you're using the wayfinding, how to find your restroom. Or like at Tampa Airport, they have 6 Starbucks. It's going to ask you, which Starbucks are you wanting to get to, right? And so it's going to start asking you questions. It's going to start narrowing down choices for you and help you get to your destination through like almost a human interaction, right? Because it's creating this generative responsive and a more effective answering system, right? And so I think there's a lot of ways that it assists to shorten your information gathering. It also can kind of queue things a lot better and then trigger a lot more data or a lot more visualizations off of it as well. So I think that's what's exciting about it. And we're at the precipice of it. Like there's so much stuff. Sam Altman's brain is insane of where he's going with this stuff. And we don't know half of what he's thinking of doing that or making with GBT, and now Microsoft is building in the GBT into their system. Google just had a leak yesterday accidentally of their new web-based AI system. They accidentally released it to the market to look at, and then they turned it off. People had a little deep dive. So Google's coming out with a whole new web-based AI experience that's going to be pretty insane. I think to compete maybe with what Bing is doing in some capacity as well. So there's so much fun stuff coming around. I think the markets that are never going to have to worry is the labor market, right? The electricians, the plumbers, those are never going to have to worry about anything. So I think AI is not going to destroy the world. I think we're okay. I think our landscapers are fine.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. The AI can't push buttons. So as long as we don't give it a hand, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I was going to say they can push a button, you give it a hand. So
yeah, well, we have to have better robotics for that. I find it interesting because the way that you're describing it, you're looking at using that to modify the user experience, right? So how we interact with our technology, which is really important because the easier we make things to do with our tech, the better it is. Like being able to use a large language model like ChatGPT, and instead of having to figure out a complex string of commands, just be able to speak to it in a normal mode. I mean, that's Star Trek levels of talking to your computer, and it just works, right? Where you don't have to learn a methodology. So it's gonna speed deployment. You mentioned efficiency being so key, right? So it's gonna speed deployment of technology. It's gonna increase adoption. Going back old school, and I'm taking away from signage for a second, but one of the things, I'm gonna go back to the years of Skype in the early 2000s, right? When pre-Zoom, pre-Teams, when we had Skype, and we designed a really nice conference system. And I put together like this beautiful bespoke video conferencing solution. Maybe it's using a Cisco conferencing codec. And we'd have this great setup. And then somebody just basically plops their laptop down on the conference table and ignores the tens of thousands of dollars of equipment because it was too hard to use, right? And they're just making a call on Skype. So there's a whole other discussion there about simplification. But the other thing I like how you mentioned the word generative. And that's what I think a lot of our audience probably immediately thinks of when they think of AI, is also the content creation aspects as it relates to digital signage. And you were mentioning like using AI to figure out how to adapt like different language and different cultural content and targeting it. But in terms of like content creation, What are your thoughts on people who are envisioning AI being able to build signage content for us based on a prompt? Because I know how I personally use it. I should use it more like you're doing it, but I do things like I use it as a troubleshooting tool for my engineers, where it's okay, go to Chat GPT and here's a template for a prompt to ask it questions about a particular system, and we're having a problem with it, and it then can recommend troubleshooting steps so that I can augment a less well-trained engineer, as an example. So I'm using it in kind of a different way there. What are your thoughts on like content creation as that goes to, just telling it, build me a signage content that does X, Y, and Z?
I think it's all about the parameters you put in place. I think you still need the human creative mind to really guide that AI to create and generate the right design or the right experience. And if you're just saying, make me an elephant, it's going to just show you something random, right? If you say, I need a pink elephant with an Andy Warhol kind of experience to it that has a Koons bubbly design, now you're getting into something amazing, right? Jeff Koons, I'm just giving you okay. And so you really have to set the right parameters, and people aren't doing that correctly. So I think there's still a lot of learning to do of how to use it. I think right now I've done it for creating a Gantt chart, right? I've given it the dates. I've said, make me a Gantt chart, right? So I don't have to do it myself. Or again, like back to data visualizations, right? You're putting in even in Excel and saying, create me a bar and a pie chart and all of these and make it into these color schemes, make it into a 3D visualized design, right? That's where I think it's really exciting. And that's where the KPIs come in, the matrix designs. So I like it from that side. I wouldn't use it for more than that yet, I think. Unless you're a graphic designer with Adobe illustration capabilities and you have the Adobe system, I don't think it's there yet. I think we still have a little bit more to go. But it will
Okay.
be there, but you have to learn what to say and how to say it and how detailed your creative mind can take it to. So I think it still has to be the person creating that instead of it visually in a more written form, and then it does the rest for you.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I was going to ask about, because I wanted to get your take on it, and you went exactly there before I even asked the question. Was, we've got all these great tools and we're leveraging them this way, but how do we keep the human element to it? And I think the way that you're thinking about it is the way that I'm thinking about it, which is we have to consider the parameters of the prompts you're writing, because right now I think our limits really aren't the machine. The machine's really smart and really good at handling data. It has no actual intelligence. It just has speed and efficiency in managing, sorting, filtering data, right? That's what it does. And so even the generated content, right, is just another form of data to it, because
Mm-hmm.
it's pulling different elements from different places. It had to be taught on an existing art, as an example. So how do we really keep the human element engaged here? Because we're dealing with, all right, these benefits of building content in AI, but it doesn't have any kind of heart. It doesn't have any inherent understanding of what it's doing. It's just building to your prompt. So the limit really is the prompt, but even then, how do we keep that human factor there, that creativity, that actual benefit? Because at the end of the day, it's about communication, right? What we're doing right now, and AI can't really do that yet, right?
I think the best thing to leverage AI for is data aggregation that then creates an AI-driven analysis, right? I think that's where I think is going to be the most important layers of AI is how it does all of that Excel spreadsheet formulas that everyone hates to do. Let AI do that for you, and then you have to take that and put that into whatever experience or digital design or whatever you want afterwards, but let that do that kind of algorithm kind of formulas and stuff like that. Let AI do that. And then you still have to put that somewhere. You still have to make sure that is leveraged in the right way, in a more efficient and effective way. So AI should be leveraged to streamline your day to day, not to do all of your day to day. And I think that's where it won't take over the world if we keep it that way. Really, it's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
helping versus doing. Um,
Yeah, that makes
that's what
sense.
I'm pretty adamant about. Is just don't let AI take over. Use AI to make it easier for you to continue your day in a more productive manner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool, right? So it's something we're using to accomplish a goal, and we're not trying to turn over the thinking. At least I would hope not. We're not trying to turn over the thinking. We're trying to just augment and have it perform tasks we don't want to do. And I think that kind of data aggregation plays into some of the overarching topics we were already covering, right? So you could take it from that aspect you were just describing, and then I could leverage AI as a tool to help refine my content strategy, not necessarily produce my
Triggering
content.
as well. It's all about triggering, yeah, and automating. 100%. I think that's where things are going to be for the digital industry, especially, is how do you use AI to drive new content triggering capabilities versus content design? I think the triggering capability is a lot better. It's the automations, right? For me, my world, what I say to everyone, every single client I have or everyone I talk to is using your API and automating your content is the smartest, fastest approach to keeping things dynamic and not stagnant, right? If you're looking for manual entry, you're never going to update your screens. You're never going to update your display solutions. But if you're leveraging and aggregating your third-party data, right? SharePoint, Power BI, Tableau, whatever it may be, and having that trigger the data visualizations on a screen, or having that trigger even like Office 365, having that trigger a check-in when you walk in the room, or like Neat now has an API that triggers smart spaces, or Cisco Meraki has their like room conditions, right? And so it tells you who's in the room, what the temperature in the room, but it also creates an occupancy data point, right? So now you know to check in, or if no one shows up, auto cancels. So that's how AI is also being used in the back end to look at things and do something for you, right? So triggering your template to say now you're available because no one showed up in 15 minutes, or you walk in and you forgot to check in, it check-ins for you. So it does and shows that layer on that content on the template on the tablet of a restaurant or whatever it may be. I think that's the nice part about the AI, is using those peripherals, those IoTs, to say, okay, this person is here or this person's not here. This room is this way. This room is missing this, or even doing an IT ticket call saying, okay, the sensor, the projector isn't working. You do a ServiceNow ticket automatically because it can sense that, and the AI is learning to do that for you. So in an IT world, in a digital world, I think that's where you're going to find a huge benefit in your day-to-day for digital signage, digital displays, and digital experiences, with AI, with sensors, all connected and aggregating off of live real-time API experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a really important concept, because look at what that means for an employer, right? So, you know, you mentioned efficiency. That's something we're always looking to do. That's part of the benefit of digital signage is always been efficiency, even when it was in its infancy, back when you and I both got involved in all this nonsense, when it was just a digital poster, right? And all you were doing was just an ad. And obviously it's changed so much from there. And so now we're looking at, okay, we've got all of this data we can aggregate. And with the AI's help, look at, hey, I have a conference room. Should I still have that conference room? Do I need to invest in that technology there because no one's using it? You know, is my sign in the right place in my facility because no one's watching it, no one's consuming that information? Or, you know, I've got a problem with my air conditioning because it's not being as efficient as it could be. And so it gives us all these really great data points. And then we can choose to build a plan on that. So that sounds like a cost savings measure to me, because I'm not spending money on things that aren't being used, right?
Correct.
But it's also things like being more ecologically sound, because I'm reducing power consumption. So that cuts down my power bill. So that's cost savings, but it's also more responsible and sustainable. So kinds of things all kind of, it all connects back together. I guess that's why we started with omnichannel as the buzzword, because this is an omnichannel approach.
It's all connected.
It all kind of connects back together, right?
Yeah, all this IoT, all these peripherals, all these AIs, they're all working together. That's how you need them to do, to then be more efficient and be streamlined and automatic. So you don't have to touch it. You don't have to worry about it. But then in the end of the day, all of that data, all of that stuff comes to the screen, shows you your agenda, shows you your KPI, shows you your seasonal content or your CEO's message, or streams through like a UDP link, your visual things based on, okay, people are in the room, now it triggers that message, right? So I think that's the exciting part is the work can be done to keep things interactive, keep things dynamic, and not boring. And people are going to use it, people are going to enjoy it, and in real time, people are going to understand what's happening with their day-to-day or what the message that you're trying to convey is in a more automated approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like the idea, and you know, we're like really big on buzzwords, it seems like, for our little chat here, but like IoT, you mentioned IoT. So we've got all these sensors everywhere, right? And I love the people who don't understand that IoT is like saying the cloud. It's just this broad stroke brush
Yeah.
that you paint certain things, but it's network connected sensors and triggers, right? I like the idea that, and this goes further to one of your original points at the beginning of our discussion, was the kind of the more broad adoption of digital signage. It's been accepted as a common tool. You have it. You're expected to have it in space. But I think one of the added benefits that I don't know if everybody considers, and I bet you have because you've been talking about it here, but is that now if I'm starting to deploy digital signs with IoT sensors, I'm using it for triggering content, I've got those sensors deployed for other purposes, right? And then back to our AI, I'm capturing all that raw data. And if we train our models to separate out, hey, I've got presence detection at my signage, maybe in a retail environment. I've got presence detection at my signage to trigger different content. Maybe you've got like a lift and learn system, right? So I've got all the different sensors, but now I know who's there. And I can take that data and look at maybe heat mapping for traffic, or looking at climate control, or maybe turning off, like I love the very simple ones, like you see the refrigerator cases that turn off their LED lighting when no one's in the aisle. So
yeah, smart space. It's all about the smart spaces, yeah, and sustainability, 100%, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, we end up being an almost driving factor in that, by consequence of we exist in that space, and we want to use, for digital signage, we want to use those tools, those sensors, those triggers for our specific purposes, but now they're deployed. And so they can leverage them for other smart space applications. I think that's an underappreciated added benefit.
I think that's the evolution also of what digital signage was. It used to be just a screen and a slideshow, right? Right? Or you think of Times Square billboards. That's digital signage, but that's all people sometimes think about. This is the evolution. This is where the digital signage experience is going, with these peripherals, these sensors that can do this, the AI that triggers this, the APIs that aggregate this information into a content experience, right? I think that's where this industry is going. And that's also how all of these tech partnerships are made, right? You've got the Ciscos, you got the Sonys, you've got the Bright Signs, you've got the Crestrons, you've got all of these layers that end up talking to one another, or the MTR rooms, right? That now MTR and Cisco are in cahoots together, funny enough. Everyone knows that they have to play together to create this dynamic solution that's effective and productive for the organization, or even higher education, right? Or government. They're all kind of doing the same thing, even though they're a completely different vertical market in some aspects. They're all used from the classroom. There's a classroom in a corporate office. There's a classroom in Walmart, and there's a classroom in Tulane University, right? It's all ends up being the same scenario. And they're all using these different triggering points to create this visual experience. And that's where I think probably a lot of our attendees kind of might not have thought about it, but this is also a good way to look at what you have today and then how it can be used to evolve your digital solution, right? Your experience, your day-to-day interaction with all of these devices together. And I think that's where a year from now, 2 years from now, especially with AI, things are just going to be just perfectly streamlined and easy for anyone to really, from a novice user to more advanced user, to be on the same level, because a lot of that is just being done for you or being triggered for you. So
Yeah,
I'm
because you're
excited for the evolution.
taking that operator skill out of it, and now it's I'm just able to interact with the system the way you and I are interacting here.
Yep.
Well, before we jump into Q&A, and I'm going to give everybody a chance to throw any questions you'd like to ask myself or Tomer, or any topics you'd love to hear us discuss, throw that in the chat or into the Q&A bar. I got a couple of questions already, but before we jump into that, are there any key takeaways you'd like to make sure our audience is aware of? Just a couple of points that you want to make sure we leave behind for these great folks who took 45 minutes out of their day to listen to us talk.
Thank you for letting us rant. I appreciate it, everyone. No, I think that there's some of this can be very overwhelming, and it really does take a team, right, to really put these pieces together. It's all puzzle pieces, and so you need a good solution provider, you need a good system integrator, you need a good um, technology kind of collaboration. So reach out to me, reach out to Sony, reach out to all of these different pieces to understand how you can combine it, how you can create this digital evolution, right, that we're talking about today. And because it can be scary at how fast the industry has grown and kind of pivoted. And being agile, right? So I think that definitely reach out anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's not really much takeaways other than just like when you're ready and you have an idea, find out what solution can benefit from a future proofing perspective. It's not what you can do today, it's what you can do in a year from now that really matters. And I think that's the biggest thing people sometimes are kind of forgetting is like they think about, all right, I just need a screen today to just do this. But what happens in a year or two? You're going to have to look for something else because you didn't do your due diligence to find out what the most agile solution is for the year or 2 years from now. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I want to make sure everyone is aware of.
Excellent, thank you. And actually that plays right into one of the questions that I saw come in is how do you overcome the intimidation factor of AI for its users? That's, I think, a really important question because you already called it. It can seem pretty scary. This has come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And for those of us of a certain age, we grew up with science fiction with AI being, and especially AI going wrong, being a very common trope. And so there's a kind of an instinctual, visceral kind of, right? That makes you a little nervous. So what would you say to someone who's curious about how do I overcome that intimidation factor?
Well, Elon Musk has already just shown us how he can do Minority Report and iLegend in one, right? With all the stuff he just came out with. So it is a little scary, right? Because those movies were a little sketchy. I think there's different nuances to generative AI, to the LLM models, right? So I think you just got to find out what it is, what's your solution goals, and then kind of finding out what provider or integrator can recommend the best layers of using AI. How do we train AI to benefit you? So instead of like, oh my God, AI can do it all, it's more like, how do I be more efficient and do less day-to-day manual entry? What do I need done? And then going to find out the right partners that can lead you to the best AI experience or stuff like that. Because there is so many different plugins and widgets and different new applications that are coming out around AI. And every CRM in the world is using AI now. Everything is, right? So it's going to be endless and it will be overwhelming. So it's really about what is your goal and then pinpointing who can help you achieve that goal with the right AI model.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. How about your thoughts on when to use AI versus actually not, and going it kind of the manual way? Are
I
there
think
are there
that's where
instances where
I
you run?
was talking about that. I think the creative design. I think design is still. I think the human mind still is better than AI in terms of the creative approach to things. So I think the UI, the UXs of the world, those layout design, right? The Genslers of the world, right? All of those kind of people, um, they're still more brilliant than what AI could produce, right? I think AI is really fun and I think it's novel and you can, if you ask it the right things and you're using the right application from AI, it'll produce some really fun things, but it won't give you the right workflow. It won't give you the right design of process and layers that you need to leverage for digital signage or for web design or whatever it is. So I think the creative approach is still human necessities over AI. leveraged.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. So this is a bit of a long question. I'm going to read it from our audience. This is going to be, I think we've caught some of this already, but many people think of AI to generate content, so generative AI to actually create new content. But in digital signage, using edge devices like sensors, giving the CMS feedback about the environment, and then you can use AI to select contextually relevant content, excuse me, from a big playlist. Isn't the second type above where the real innovation is, where so the contextual? I think we covered that one pretty well for you. Yeah, I mean that's what we were discussing earlier. So never mind, I was being redundant. Apologies. Uh, okay, I know who asked this one, and I'm going to tease them about it later. Random question about trade shows. Why even at AV or digital signage trade shows hasn't anyone come up with a great wayfinding system to navigate the show, or have they?
We
I think you're
have.
gonna troll the
We
audience.
literally won an award at Infocom for creating an AI trade show based app. Like that, we literally won that. So we've done that, and we've just deployed about 5 different global trade shows with AI, including in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for like their biggest book fair of the year, and they used our AI module for AI assistant with wayfinding. So no, we literally created an AI trade show subpage because it's such just an easy thing, right? We're using our wayfinding, we're using the AI database, which is very small. It's not a long thing. It's just the sessions, exhibitor names. So it's really easy to manipulate trade show content. And we've also offered it to a Avixa for free, and they haven't taken us up on it. And we've offered it to DSC for free, and they haven't taken us up on it. So they're lost.
Wow, yeah, some call outs there. We'll have to share the recording with the both the Vixa and the DSC team. I think QuestX would find that funny. And yeah, I think you got a plant in the audience if you're coming up with questions like that. That was I think written for you
I
there,
did
buddy.
not, but that actually, I was like, no, I didn't tell anyone to do that. But yeah, we've literally done that. So.
Yeah, fair enough. And I figured you would have. That's why I thought that one was really funny. So I got an interesting one, and this might be a really good one because then we're gonna come up on time to end with, unless there are any others that come in from the audience. I got one last one here. What are the cost ramifications for implementing AI, especially generative AI? Because it does seem like it can be a very expensive proposition, which I think is part of why NVIDIA is worth over $1 trillion now.
Yeah, I had that stock, great stock. So it has to be trained. You have to train AI, and you have to create what's called a walled garden experience around it. So that's a service, right? So that's a time and effort. So it's almost an hourly cost to get the AI to do what you need. Now, obviously, a lot of people are building AI into their as a widget or as a plugin, right, to do certain layers. But I think, like from our perspective, we want to confine AI because it can just do what's called hallucinations and go crazy. So that could be a 60-hour service or an 80 hours of training the AI module to do specific tasks within your database that then trigger the content within your database and nothing else. It's not that expensive. It's really just an hourly cost, and then you're just paying for like the module. Like you may have to get a commercial token from GBT, which is still not expensive. I think it's just half a cent for like certain inquiries. So it's not that bad. And so I think maybe 10 grand, 20 grand out the door initially is what you could be looking at if you're looking to do something from scratch. But again, a lot of CRMs, CMS solutions are starting to add AI for free in their software as well. So.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm willing to bet that the person who posed the question was probably thinking more from a hardware standpoint, because obviously you've got a lot of the silicon makers, especially AMD and Intel right now, really pushing their NPU technology to bring, like I just bought a new laptop, and not naming brands because I'm not doing endorsements. Although if anybody's interested, I'm more than willing to be hired for that. But it's I buy a new laptop, and it's a Microsoft Copilot PC, so it's got an NPU in it. I don't know that I'll use it. I'm not planning to at this point, but who knows? But I think it's like that.
They're
that
building
thought
that
of
in free as well, though, right now, right? Like the new Apple 18 generation has the new AI built into the phone. You buy the phone, AI is built into it. I think Copilot's like $30 a month, so it's not that bad.
No.
There's a subscription model, but a lot of the manufacturers are building AI as well, and you're just maybe pay to play from a SaaS model is really what
Right,
that.
right. And then, I think people get these ideas of gigantic, $50,000 server blades stacked with GPUs
Yeah,
to run all the hardware. And I don't think it's there anymore. Yeah, if you're the actual model host and you're running
hmm
your own LLM,
correct.
yeah, you're going to have some serious silicon. But, for those of us using it, it really doesn't have to be an expensive product. I know I've got a subscription to GPT and I just use it. I'm using it for fun. I'm absolutely like I'm a kindergartner just going, but it's goofy. But I bought it. It's a few bucks a month, and I just use it for simple questions, right? Like,
Correct.
oh, I want instead of having to go Google something, I want more relevance. I'll ask it a question, or I'll run, like I mentioned, using it for tech support. I'll bounce, write me a Crestron script that does X, Y, and Z for these pieces of equipment, and boom, and that's worth a few bucks a month. So
Yeah,
very
like I said,
good.
my favorite AI right now is, other than 22 Miles AI, but my favorite AI is the Read.ai one. I think that is just makes meetings amazing. Like and that's 20 bucks a month. It's nothing, and it's so efficient, and it tells me what I did wrong or how to do things better in my meetings sometimes as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I hope they pay you for the endorsement. I'm gonna have to go check that out now.
yeah.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. We're right at about time. So what I'm gonna do is I think we'll call it here. Tomer, thank you, my friend. It was great to get to spend 45 minutes chatting with you, getting your thoughts on all this. Really appreciate you joining us and supporting the effort. So thank you for being part of Screens Unscripted. We really, really appreciate it. If anybody wants to learn more about 22 Miles, what's the best way to come across that data?
22miles.com. Very simple. Reach out. We have a contact form there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or any of my colleagues as well. And we're happy to engage and help and consult on any of these scenarios as well.
Excellent, excellent. Do you have any upcoming events you're going to be participating in? You're going to be at DSE?
No, but
Okay.
I will be at IAPA actually in Orlando, theme park based trade show. That'll be fun.
Oh yeah,
We
that's a cool event.
That's a fun event. And then Infocom and ISC probably, and then those kinds of, and then a lot of our AV partners have their own like ones, so we'll be at their AV shows.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear it. To our audience, thank you all. Greatly appreciate your time today. And of course, I have to thank our sponsor again. So thank you to our friends at Sony for helping us produce these events. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Hope
Omni.
everybody found this helpful. Again, Tomer, thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate it as always. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day.